Aloha Hawaii and welcome to another version of Hawaii Sports Update. I'm your host PJ and we'll be talking to Star-Advertiser beat writer Brian McInnis in just a little while and get some updates and some input about what's going on with the UH men's basketball program. Now, UH men's volleyball team is 6-2 overall and 3-1 in conference play after a huge road win against UC Irvine. They're looking tomorrow night. Tomorrow night they're going to be playing against the USC Trojans, and then Friday night also. They are both in the top of the category in conference play, and they're going to be fighting it out for first place. So go out and support your local Rainbow Warriors. They're led by All-American Tyler Averill and the rest of the boat team, so go out and support them. Now, moving along with women's basketball, the women's basketball team is on a 5-game win streak currently. They lost their first 2 conference games, and they put together 5 wins in a row to move a half a game behind Cal Poly. They play Cal Poly on Saturday, and that game should be for first place as they take on UC Santa Barbara Thursday night. And UC Santa Barbara is winless so far this season, so they need to not overlook that team and get ready for Cal Poly in conference play. Now, moving along to the men's team, they've split their 2 road games so far on the road on this 4-game road swing. They're going to have to try to go 3-1 to make up some of those tough home losses they had in conference earlier in the season. We'll be talking about the men's basketball team coming up shortly, but they are 3-4 in conference right now, and they're trying to stay in the top 8 just to get into the conference tournament. Now, moving along, Brian McInnis, he is a beat writer for the Star-Advertiser. He covers basketball as long as many other various topics also, or subjects also, but we're talking basketball right now. And Brian, what's going on with the sanctions and what's the latest news on what's going on with the UH basketball team?
Yeah, PJ, there have been some pretty big developments in the last few days here. It was leading up for months without much breaking news in the way of a letter of allegations from the NCAA or knowledge by the public of the content that was in those allegations from the investigation that started back in March. So it took really a full 8 months for the investigation to go from start to finish, and then there was some administrative things that I guess they had to take care of or knock off before they could deliver that notice of allegations. Finally came on Friday. It became public via a Freedom of Information request we put in on by Saturday. So that's when we got to see there were 7 different violations itemized by the NC2A, 3 of the level 1 or most severe variety, 4 of the level 2 variety, and it did not reflect well on coaches Gib Arnold and assistant coach Brandon Akana, both former coaches at the University of Hawaii. They were implicated several times in kind of obfuscating the truth and basically accounted for all 3 of those level 1 violations. So it was kind of plain to see why UH felt they had to cut ties with those guys back on October 28th.
Right, before it came out. Okay, now, looking through the documents, explain to the people out there what's the difference between a level 1 violation, which is the more serious, and also a level 2, which is also serious. They have 4 different levels, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, PJ. Yeah, they recently went to the 4-tiered system of classification that's relatively new. UH is actually one of the first schools to have a letter of allegations or notice of allegations delivered under this format. And level 1 basically means you're subject to the most severe penalties, whether that means a postseason ban for a year or more, reduction of scholarships. You could get reduced practice time, and some of these could come in the form of self-sanctions by the University of Hawaii if they elect to be proactive and decide they need to do more than just the firings of coaches Arnold and Akana that already took place. And that's kind of where we are. We need to wait and see what these penalties are going to be. If there's going to be some back and forth between Hawaii and the NC2A
Uh-huh.
over the coming months, because they do have some leeway to, I guess, deliberate and then decide exactly how they're going to respond to these allegations.
Okay, and some of the level two some of the level two violations, what did they consist of,
Mm-hmm.
and without implicating any of the student athletes?
Right.
What was that about?
There was one instance of a student athlete borrowing a Porsche for 2 days, and the report goes into a little bit of detail about the coaching staff becoming aware of it, and Coach Arnold becoming angry about it and telling his team, hey, you can't do this. But at the same time, the report also states they didn't come forward and self-report this.
Right.
So it kind of just stayed as is until they kind of dragged it out in this report.
Okay.
That was one. Another one involved prospective recruits using the Liahi room at the Sheraton Waikiki Hotel on a few instances, I believe, which is not permissible normally because it's not an area that a regular hotel guest has access to.
Right.
There was also an instance regarding, excuse me, grab my water.
Yeah, go ahead. Take your time. Yeah, and okay, we're here with Brian McInnis, beat writer for the Star-Advertiser, and we're just going over some of the violations and some of explain the difference between level 1 violations and level 2. And Brian, maybe go ahead and pick back up. You're speaking about some of the level 2 violations there.
Right. There was also involving the director of operations position, which is part of what that is, for those who don't know, is the director of operations is a staff member on the coaching staff, but it's not considered a full-time coach. And the allegation states that 2 director of operations that were on Gib Arnold's staff, Scott Fisher and Kerry Rupp, were both used as an on-court coach at various times.
Right, and they were supposed to be the ones who were apparently overseeing these practices or these scrimmages with the recruits.
And that was the last one. That there were instances of recruits coming in and coaches being present during open gym sessions between current UH athletes and the recruits that were on recruiting trips. And the coaches are not supposed to be present while those take place, and that's what they have some testimony of in the report. So
okay.
As far as the directors of operations, they're really just supposed to be kind of behind the scenes guys who take care of, say, travel arrangements or budgetary needs. Aren't really supposed to be active as coaches calling recruits or being on the court or scouting opponents or anything like that.
Okay, and they claim that Gib Arnold was the overseer of all of these activities?
In the reports, it's fairly consistent about stating that things are done at Coach Arnold's direction in these instances, even when it's other people directly committing these violations.
Okay.
It repeatedly says that Coach Arnold directed them to, in the example of the director of operations, coach on the court and not to tell anyone else that you're doing this, and if the media shows up, then we're cutting it out, we're knocking it off. So
wow.
it was fairly fairly damning of Coach Arnold's involvement in.
Right. Okay. Now, let me understand this. Gib Arnold was found overseeing these practices and recruits, and I mean, how serious is that?
On each of these items by themselves, they wouldn't be considered that serious, PJ. I think UH might have otherwise got away with maybe not a slap on the wrist, but nothing like the firings that have taken place.
Right.
But what the NC2A really kind of elevated them for was the level of, I guess they felt, deceit and obfuscation of the truth during the course of their investigation.
Okay.
That really kind of got dragged out over the course of many months, like I mentioned earlier.
Right.
Just because they had to go back and forth and interview witnesses again and try to hammer out these conflicting accounts. That's something they really don't like. I mean, if something that we can see in the document is they cite repeatedly, ethical questions of ethical behavior and just not following the NCAA code of conduct and bylaws and spirit of their
Right,
constitution.
such as not be coming forthwith with information.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, now, do you think that UH has done a little bit of damage control with with the firings of both coaches and try to put some self sanctions on themselves before the NCAA comes down with with what they're going to do?
Right. They already took two pretty big steps in releasing the two coaches back in October, as well as suspending Isaac Fotu for the duration of, it was indefinitely, and then Fotu went on to go pro,
Right.
Which was a big loss for the team. But as we've seen, they rebounded and kind of under Coach Taylor have really found a new identity. And,
Right.
But as far as upcoming self-sanctions, it's quite possible. UH could elect to dock itself a scholarship or two for a season or two, or reduce practice time per week, or and some of these could take effect next year because we're down to a month or two left in this season, and before we know it, March will be here, and this team will be trying to compete in the Big West tournament.
Okay.
And a postseason ban has been at least brought up in some corners as a possibility, whether it's self-imposed or not. The big question will be, can they do it this year, and how would the team take to that? I can pretty much guarantee Coach Taylor and his guys wouldn't take to it very well.
Right.
If they decide to kind of bite the bullet on that this year.
Right. Now, what's the typical status quo on something that the NCAA would bring down for 3 level 1 violations and 4 level 2, as you stated earlier? I mean, what's a typical punishment?
So it's going to be, you can kind of look for it to be broken up between individuals and the institution of the University of Hawaii. And I think Coach Arnold Anakana might be facing some fairly stiff individual penalties in this case because of those, level 1 classifications, and because of the misdirection that the NCAA felt like it had to go through to get to this point.
Okay.
You might see them potentially held out of the NCAA ranks for it'll be called show cause reasons potentially, for a number, potentially a number of years, and an institution would have to, who would want to hire those people would have to show cause for why they feel that this person is hireable, and they would have to go through a bunch of extra hoops or steps to make that happen. So it would really kind of hurt their careers, at least in the NC2A. There, obviously there's other basketball, there's professional basketball here and overseas. If they felt like they had to go that route, there's the NAIA, for example. I mean, there's other avenues besides the NC2A, but for a coach like Gib Arnold, who's, always wanted to be a college coach, his dad was a very prominent college coach, that's surely something he's not gonna take easily, and it's still gonna remain to be seen what his rebuttal or response to these allegations are.
Okay, and if you're just joining us, we're here live with beat writer Brian McInnis with the Star-Advertiser. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back on the other side of Hawaii Sports Update, we'll be talking more with Brian about the UH basketball situation. Thank you.
Okay, this is ThinkTech Hawaii, and it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday is Energy Wednesday here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. Come and listen to us. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to ask Sharon to tell us more.
Come and see us every Wednesday, as Jay said. And we have people like Jim Albers from HECO here, and co-host Ray Starling here every Wednesday. We not only go on Olelo and OC16, but also stream live. So please come visit us, hear about the latest in clean energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here. You got any comment on all this?
As important as energy is in all of our lives today, this is a great forum and a great format to vet those issues. So I encourage everybody to listen in and participate.
Okay, Ray, what do you think for a close?
Well, I think this is the greatest show in the energy world here in Hawaii. You can come here every week, 1 hour, and catch the latest on what's happening and hear from the people who really know what's going on, like Jim Alberts. We appreciate your coming today.
Thank you.
Ray Starling, Sharon Moriwaki, Jim Alberts, and Jay Fidel here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. 4 to 5 p.m. Wednesday. Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update, and we are here with Star-Advertiser beat writer Brian McInnis discussing some of the some of the topics going on at UH basketball right now. And when we left, we were talking about some of the sanctions that UH had put on itself, and if that's going to ease up some of the tension or some of the the hammer that might be coming down towards UH. Go ahead and elaborate on that a little bit more if you want.
Yeah, sure. It's going to be really a 90-day period that UH has at maximum to come up with a formal response to the NCAA based on this notice of allegations.
Okay.
And from that point, if Hawaii does elect to use that full 90 days, I don't personally believe they will, but that's what they're allotted. After that, the NC2A has another 60 days to offer a response of its own to that. So we could be seeing some back and forth if UH, say, agrees to certain aspects of the notice and kind of objects to others or wants maybe clarification on others. So there could be some back and forth before we get some final resolution and sanctions put in, because after that 60-day period for the NC2A that I mentioned, it goes to the Committee on Infractions, and at that point they can mete out punishment as they see fit.
Okay.
So by that point, you would hope there would be some kind of accord or agreement between Hawaii and the NC2A. But bottom line, we could be in for another half year of,
Just posturing.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, getting back to Gib Arnold for a minute, he was supposed to be the overseer of all this stuff. I was looking through through some of the articles and stuff, and I seen a catalog. Tell me what a catalog is, and explain to the people what a catalog is and the importance it is for a coach to have to keep that updated.
Yeah, it's the countable or athletically related activities log in some order of that acronym. And basically, the coach, I guess, has to keep a log of each activity, hours-wise, time-wise. Per week, there's a limit. And from the way the report detailed some of those Cara log violations, which would normally be on the minor side, but even in times where whatever activity they were doing was permissible, they cited coach on one or two instances, I believe, of not taking it in the log, which is, it's just all rolled up in part of what they're kind of bringing against him as really not creating an atmosphere of compliance.
Right. And so let's just make a parallel here. Like, okay, if you're a truck driver and you're driving and you have to log in your hours, right? Mm-hmm. Is that sort of what it is with this? With
Sure.
The coach's responsibility for a basketball team? If you have a 2-hour practice, you got to log in. You had a
Right.
2-hour practice. Oh, okay.
Right, and there's a set amount of hours per week that the student athletes can practice or can do another mandated team event, and those things have to go in the log.
Okay. Now let's get to Coach Akana for a minute. What was his allegations, and is he going to be facing as stiff a penalty as Gib Arnold might be facing with as far as getting back into the NCAA and stuff like that?
It's tough to say, PJ. It's we'll have to wait and see on that. I wouldn't think so, being that he was in the role of assistant coach. But at the same time, you have to remember one of the violations the NC2A charged him with was really what got us into this whole mess. Right. That was altering a document used to admit a player back just about a year ago, last January, and UH actually self-reported it. They decided it was, egregious enough. We have to say something about this, and the NC2A used that opportunity to say, hey, wait a minute. We should probably look at your books and see what else is going on here. So even though that was self-reported, it's still something that went into the level 1 violations against Coach Akana. Right. It was kind of threefold. There was that altering of the document. There was allegedly him giving an iPad to an athlete valued at $400, which is an impermissible benefit. And then there was the fact that he tried to mislead the NC2A about that aforementioned iPad for a long period of time that they have in the records, and there's a pretty extensive back and forth that they have, emailing various people to find receipts, and it gets pretty messy, and that's kind of what they all have rolled up against Coach Akana.
Okay, and when all this came out, Gil Arnold stated that it was just, that it wasn't, he was acting like it was just a regular, not very much of a big deal. So, I mean, it looks like he was trying to sort of hide it too a little bit.
Yeah, that's all part of what they brought to bear against Coach Arnold is, just basically flat out lying to them is what they're saying.
Right.
And, they cite numerous interviews and testimonies from other people, pretty much all redacted in the document, but they cite unnamed student athletes, recruits, and other sources that all kind of paint a pretty unpleasant picture when you stack it all up for the coach.
Okay, so when UH took it upon themselves to fire Gil Arnold and Coach Akana, that that makes it look like they're taking steps to try to right the wrong.
Sure, to be proactive, and I think that's what the university has tried to show in the months since as well. I mean, they're sending compliance people on the road with the basketball team. I think they've stepped up awareness training and other measures, kind of unconventionally, I guess, to try to show the NC2A that they are a compliant institution, and the bulk of the damage was done by individuals and not the athletic department as a whole.
The institution itself. Okay. Now, how much of a burden do you think this is on the current team? I mean, do you think these kids are wondering, how serious these violations are going to be, where they're going to be at next year, if they're going to stay, and even with the Coach Taylor situation going on? I mean,
it's a great question. It really is a great question. I mean, it's something that we're going to see unfold here in the next couple months, if not more. First and foremost, there's the Coach Taylor situation. He's, like I said, he's turned a lot of heads. He's rallied the team around his kind of new, exciting style of play, and it's gotten a lot of fans behind him. They're only 3-4 in Big West play right now. Still quite a lot of ball to be played.
Right.
As you mentioned earlier, they're in the middle of a 4-game road trip.
Yes.
I think how that shakes out with Coach Taylor will say a lot about how it's going to play out with some of these student athletes, some of whom are very loyal to Coach, and we'll just see if he's retained, then maybe there's a good chance they keep the bulk of their players intact going into next season, who still have eligibility, which is pretty much everybody except Garrett Nevels, their only senior on the team.
Right.
If they decide to go in a different direction than Coach Taylor, we'll have to see how many players decide, their rest of their careers are better off elsewhere, especially if there's something in the way of harsh penalties.
Right. I mean, just you on a personal level. I mean, if Benji Taylor's not retained and all these sanctions come down, how is the program really not going to implode? I mean, what's going to be there to save it?
Well, if there's no Coach Taylor, UH is going to have to make a hire that it feels like can immediately, re-energize things, kind of represent a fresh start, if you will. That can be a pretty galvanizing force as well.
Right.
If you got an energetic, charismatic coach who comes in, can make people believe that he has what it takes to, clean things up and make it his own identity. That's something everyone can be proud of. And I know Coach Taylor believes he is that guy. Whether the UH administration feels the same, we'll see. They do have to sort out their athletic director situation, which is an added layer of complication throughout this whole process. So it's been a very trying time for the athletic department as a whole.
Absolutely. Now, do you think that it's going to have a outcome on Coach Taylor's decision about what happens, the fallout that happens? You think that's going to weigh on Coach Taylor's decision if they want to retain him or not?
From Coach Taylor's perspective?
Yeah, from Coach Taylor's perspective, yeah.
I have a feeling he'll want to be here regardless of what the penalties are.
Right.
I think he feels like he can lead them through whatever it is. If it's a postseason ban, I'm sure that's not something any fan of the program or any player or coach would want. But I honestly don't see him just kind of throwing up his hands and being like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I don't want any part of this, and good luck to you."
Right, that doesn't seem like it's in
Yeah.
his MO right there.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, now you said UH has 90 days. UH has 90 days to respond to what these violations are, and then they throw it back to the NCAA, and then they have 60 days to come back with the violations.
Correct.
Okay, so you know, like you said, we're still looking 3 or 4 months down the road. Now, how do you feel that that's going to, you know, isn't that going to hurt recruiting and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, this whole process has not been an ideal situation for recruiting. I mean, there was one kid, you know, a high school senior right now who's going to be a freshman this coming fall, took a recruiting visit to UH in the fall, like in the days leading up to the firings of Coach Arnold and Anacona. And my understanding was he was about ready to commit to the program. And once, you know, the coaches were fired and everything was kind of plunged into uncertainty, he took his talents elsewhere, for lack of a better saying, and I believe he went to Oregon State in that instance. So
Wow.
that's, you know, there hasn't been any concrete knowledge that I know of another player about ready to sign, given the current circumstances. As I said, they do only have one senior departing, Garrett Nevels,
Right.
representing one scholarship for next year.
Right.
Obviously, if more players leave, that's more scholarship openings. But believe it or not, PJ, one other thing the university or the team has to worry about is APR issues now because of the 2 player departures in the fall, that being Isaac Fotu and Samus Reyes,
Right.
leaving early. You know, that will impact your APR, and it's going to be one more thing to watch on top of everything else.
Right, and APR is it's sort of like a grade point average for the
Your academic progress rate.
Right, right.
You know, you have to pass a certain number of classes, be in good academic standing over time, you know, retain a good amount of your players. That all goes into your APR, and it rolls over a 4-year average. So if you know, this academic year, 2014-15, the team takes a hit, that could, you know, impact them for a few years to come.
All right, and we're here with Star Beat advertiser writer Brian McInnis. We're going to go to a commercial break, and on the other side, we promise we will be talking about the basketball team a little bit today. All right.
Hi, my name is Seymour Kazimirski. I have a show called Seymour's World on ThinkTech Hawaii. Our show is about opening minds and facilitating conversations. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. I have no idea who our guests are going to be, but I guarantee you we're going to have lots and lots of fun. Aloha from Seymour's World.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I host a show called Healthcare in Hawaii here on ThinkTech. We get together once a week or sometimes twice a month. Depends. When we're busy, we get together less often, but we love to see you here to talk about the preeminent healthcare issues in our state. Our programs vary very widely. We talk about economics, we talk about healthcare, we talk about social issues on this program. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update here in the ThinkTech studios. I'm PJ. I'm here with Brian McInnis, writer for the Star-Advertiser, and we're here talking about some of the stuff that's going on with UH, some of the sanctions that have been passed down, and some of the violations that have happened. But let's talk a little bit about the team now.
Sure, love to.
Now, yeah, we all know about Coach Taylor coming in, and you know, that's in the past. And then they had a great preseason, and you know, now they're 3-4 in conference. And somewhere along the way, they're going to have to sneak in a road victory against one of these teams to you know, to right themselves. What current situation are they in at 3-4, and you know, what promise do they have looking forward to the rest of the conference?
So right now the Big West is you got 3 teams tied for first, 6-1. UC Irvine, Long Beach State, and the surprise so far has been UC Davis.
Right.
Among those leaders.
And
then there's a bit of a drop.
Right.
And then you got 3 teams at 3-4, including
Okay.
Hawaii.
Okay.
And Cal Poly is right behind them at 3-5. That's Hawaii's next opponent
Right.
this coming Thursday.
All right.
And that Cal Poly was a team that beat Hawaii at the Stanton Sheriff Center to open up league play.
Right.
And a very tough overtime game that just had people shaking their fists at Cal Poly all over again, because
Right.
that team seemed to have Hawaii's number since Hawaii's been in the Big West 3 years now.
Yeah.
Even before that, when you consider had a bracket buster matchup for home and home.
Right.
So, Hawaii's in the thick of things. They're not where they want to be. They have alternated a win and a loss, or a loss and a win, every game of Big West play so far.
Right.
So you got to admire this team's resiliency, not allowing themselves to lose 2 games in a row. But they sure would like to string together some wins here and give themselves a shot at potentially a top 4 seed going into the Big West tournament.
Absolutely. Okay, now UC Davis is 5-1. That's one of the teams that UH has
Beaten.
Yeah, they gave them their only loss. Cal Poly, that's a team that they're at the top of the league last year, or
Won the conference tournament.
Yeah, they won the conference tournament last year, and that's who UH played in the semifinals or the quarterfinals last year.
UH actually played Cal State Northridge.
Oh, Cal State Northridge.
But
okay.
Northridge went on to play Cal Poly for the
That's
Big
right.
West Championship,
That's
which
right.
was no one expected it because Northridge was the 5 seed and Cal Poly was the 7 seed, and I don't think a team seeded as low as Cal Poly at 7 had ever won the Big West tournament before.
Right. Now, okay, looking forward, the teams at the top at 6-1. What are their strengths, and are they beatable? I mean, what's UH going to have to do to get inside that top 4 category?
Yeah, so Hawaii's already shown it can beat one of those teams in UC Davis, and they came pretty close against UC Irvine at the Stan Sheriff. It's going to be a tall task to beat the Anteaters at their place in Irvine, especially if they get Mamadou Njai,
Right.
their 7'6" center back, because he makes a heck of a difference out there.
Right.
So Irvine, they were the preseason favorite to win the conference. May very well still. They're going to have their battles with Long Beach State, who's shown that they can survive a very tough non-conference schedule and come in with a sub 500 overall record, shake that off, and go right on winning in Big West play.
Well, yeah, Long Beach State, they have tough losses. Syracuse, Texas, San Diego State. I mean, they're I think they probably play one of the toughest preseason schedules
Absolutely.
on the whole West Coast, and maybe
In the country.
maybe in the whole country. Yeah. So, okay, now UH is sitting at 3-4. They're back healthy again. Garrett Nevels is healthy. I mean, what's a combination that you think works best for them when they have the 2 Steffens in, or when they go with Thomas and Negus Webster-Chan? And also, all year long, I haven't really seen Aaron Valdez and Negus Webster-Chan get hot at the same time. I'm sort of looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, to answer the first part of your question, I do kind of like the look with the 2 Steffans. I mean, it gives them some size, which is something they don't have a lot of from top to bottom on the roster, quite honestly. I mean, but beyond Jovanovic and Jankovic, they have Mike Thomas at 6'7". They have him acting as a center at times.
Right.
And Negus Webster-Chan, they have act as a 4. He's really more of a natural 2,
Right.
maybe a 3.
Right.
So going with a look that maybe gives them a little bit better rebounding right off the bat, I think that's part of what Coach Taylor's looking for there. It's been, I want to say, 4 games now in a row, give or take 1, that they've had that starting lineup with those 2 6'11" bigs out there. They are playing roughly about the same minutes, 17 to 20, at least in Jovanovic's case. I think Jankovic has really stepped up his production of late, and his minutes workload has increased as well.
Okay, now during the 1-2-2 press, like the 2 back guys are sort of important as well as the guy on the point. But what I see sometimes when they get beat is the guys aren't getting back. Once they break the press, they're sometimes giving up easy layups,
Right.
and that happens with the
Sure,
press,
sure.
But I mean, I think the other 2 guys with Thomas and Webster-Chan might be a little bit more athletic, only in press situations. What do you think about that?
Well, as you mentioned, the back line, Roderick Bob had actually talked about in their last home game, needing those guys to show a little more discipline as far as staying back in the press and being that anchor and not allowing as many easy baskets. I mean, it's kind of a given. If you press long enough, a team will score an easy basket or 2 on you when they do break that first line or 2 of your pressure. So I think the bigs, as Rod said, I mean, might have to be a little more disciplined there. And Even once they drop back into the half court, if a team does break the press but not get a basket immediately,
Right.
Coach Taylor, I think, would like to see a little bit better discipline in the half court once they get to that point. But it sure has been fun to watch when they've frenzied teams up and
Oh, absolutely.
disrupted their ball handlers and really kind of flustered some of those opponents.
Absolutely, especially UC Davis, when they came in only averaging about 8 turnovers a game or something like that. And,
Cal Poly was,
Yeah, Cal Poly,
and
and
then
then they
Hawaii.
turned it over 24 times or something that game.
18 for Poly, which was
Yeah.
a huge number for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Davis did get very disrupted, and there was a stretch in the first half of that game at the Sheriff that they just looked all out of sorts, and Hawaii went on a massive run at that point.
Yes, and speaking of Roderick Bobbitt, I mean, what can you say about the guy, especially defensively? You know, he sort of contributes offensively when they need it, but him and Nevels are the you know, they catapult that 1-2-2 and they really get after it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, yeah, getting Garrett Nevels back from that wrist injury was big after he had surgery.
Absolutely.
But Roderick Bobbitt is something else. The way he forces turnovers, he's among the national leaders in that category, and it's been just a pleasure to watch him operate and go to work this season. I mean, he's the head of that 1-2-2 majority of the time. Other guys on the team can force steals, get ball pressure in, like Quincy Smith, like Isaac Fleming. Aaron
Right.
Valdez is 43 steals on the year, which is
Right.
quite a few in his own right. So, but Roderick Bobbitt by the end of the season can become the UH single season leader in steals, and he could even lead the NCAA ranks in total steals because the one guy who's ahead of him just actually got injured. It was very unfortunate. But,
Oh, wow.
So Rod's kind of path is clear if he keeps going at this rate.
Okay, now the defense is solid, and Aaron Valdez, he's sort of like the kind of player who lets the game come to him. You know, he's the kind of guy you don't really have to run plays for. I mean, they run a couple plays for him off of timeouts and stuff like that. But who else besides Valdez? I mean, I think there's going to be somebody else who has to step up offensively for them to, when they're struggling. I mean, who do you think that has to be?
I think you look at one of two guys, either Negus Webster-Chan or Isaac Fleming. Isaac Fleming's probably the best creator on this team as far as being able to generate his own shot.
Right.
When he's feeling it, I mean, he can put together nice plays in a row. I mean, just break a guy down off the dribble, make tough, left-handed takes to the hoop where he just kind of slithers in there.
Yes.
When he's feeling it. There's other times he plays a little undisciplined, and that's something the coaches continue to work with him on. He's only a freshman,
Right.
albeit a slightly older freshman. But as far as Negus Webster-Chan, his best attribute so far has been his three-point shooting, and he leads the team in that category, shooting better than 40% on threes for the season.
Right.
So it's just the rest of his game I think the team would like to see come along a little more as far as being aggressive, going to the hoop,
Right.
earning more trips to the free throw line.
Yeah.
Getting his mid-range game going a little more I think would really kind of balance out his overall contribution to the team.
Right.
I guarantee that's something he'll work on, him being just a sophomore. And lately they brought him in off the bench, and he's given him a nice scoring punch from there.
Right. Now, speaking of sophomores, what do you think about the sophomore class? You have Valdez, you have Negus Webster-Chan, you have Mike Thomas, and you have Bo Stefan.
Correct.
I mean, that's like the core of the team. I mean, to keep those 5 guys together would be a huge impact for UH, especially a couple years down the road.
It would, and we've seen the program's had some difficulty holding on to guys for more than maybe a year or two at a time, with a couple of exceptions. But of late, it's really been a matter of Division I basketball and just a kind of an epidemic of transferring and guys just not sticking it out. It might be somewhat a sign of the times we're in now, but
Right.
If they can hold those guys together that PJ was talking about, I mean that'll be quite a joy to see those guys kind of grow and come into their own together over time, even considering the leaps some guys like Valdez have made already this season.
Right. Well, I had Benji Taylor in here a few weeks ago, and he brought something to my attention that if this sophomore class stays together, you're speaking about the potential of 5 guys scoring over 1,000 points in one program off the same team. I mean, I mean, how is that almost unheard of?
Well, at Hawaii, it would absolutely pretty much be unheard of. There just hasn't been, a plethora of 1,000-point scorers in the program's history.
Right.
Vander Joachim, I believe, was number 13 or 13 or 14 when he went over 1,000 points. And Christian Stanhardiger, he achieved it in 2 years, and credit to him. I mean, that's pretty tough to
Yeah,
do.
that is pretty good.
But having a crop of guys like that, that's certainly a feat to aspire to. And if it'll take a lot of doing to keep a big group of guys like that together. But of course, as we talked about earlier, things have to get sorted out here as far as UH's future and penalties, and whether that might influence some guys to leave early, we'll see.
Okay, now let's just talk hypothetically for a minute now. What would be a perfect scenario from this point of the season on for UH right now? And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about where the program's going to go from after that.
Well, perfection would be running the table in the rest of the Big West play, but honestly, I mean, that's probably not realistic. I would say, they're right around the halfway mark in league play right now, and 8 games after that, they've already finished play against Cal State Northridge. They have yet to play Cal State Fullerton, who's at the bottom of the standings at the moment. So, they could conceivably win, 7-8 games would maybe be something to aspire to from this point on. That would be almost all of them remaining. That would be pretty tough, honestly. But if they can kind of stay around, 5-6 losses in league play, they're at 4 at the moment. So, that would take some doing. But go into the Big West tournament as maybe a top 3 seed, give themselves a favorable matchup in the first round in the quarterfinals.
Right.
They haven't yet won a game in the Big West tournament, so got to start there. Got to win that first one and see if they can build off that and generate some positivity for themselves in March, which has been few and far between for the program.
Okay, and after this fallout, what do we have to look forward to for the UH basketball program? I mean, hopefully they don't come down too hard. We've self-sanctioned ourselves a little bit, and so what do we have to look forward to for the UH basketball program?
Yeah, I mean, in the immediate sense, you got an exciting group of guys who's played hard all year, and I don't expect that to change given what's come out in the last few days. They've responded well from adversity all year. I mean, they rallied around each other after their head coach got fired. They, knocked off some very well-known teams in Pitt and, Colorado and Nebraska, power conference teams in the non-conference season. That turned a lot of heads, even though those teams may not be up to their normal standards this season. But they did, come off NCAA appearances last year, and those teams that UH beat, I mean.
Right. And Pitt just beat Notre Dame or
they
somebody.
Did.
Yeah.
They beat number 8 Notre Dame at home. So, that's a program that still has some bite, if you will. And, UH has to, shoot for maybe, 20-plus wins.
All right.
And that would, I think, generate, some additional excitement about this team going into the potential postseason if they can achieve that.
Okay.
And we'll see if Coach Taylor, if it's him or if it's not him, then there'll be excitement about a new head coach. And if it's Coach Taylor, I know he'll really try to continue establishing his kind of identity on this program as he goes forward, being that he's only had this interim year to do it so far and has already kind of achieved quite a bit. So there's going to be some attention around the program either way. It's just going to be the manner of it and who's going to be leading them.
All right, and so there you have it, the inside scoop on UH men's basketball. I'm PJ with Star-Advertiser writer Brian McInnis. Thank you for joining Hawaii Sports Update, and hopefully you're well informed about what's going on at the UH basketball in Honolulu. We'll see you later.